Okay.
Hello and welcome to another episode of FinTalk Show with Pros AI. In today's episode, we are extremely excited to have Robert Day, Managing Partner at WeAudit.com. Welcome to the show, Robert. Really pleased to have you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
Maybe before we dive in, Robert, can you tell our audience briefly who you are, what you do, and the inspiration behind what you do?
Sure. Yeah. So, like you said, I'm managing partner of WeAudit.com. And of course, I realize a lot of people will say, what is that? But credit card processing, at least in the US, is unregulated. Some other areas of the country as well, or the world as well. But we primarily focus in the US because credit card processing is a non-regulated industry that is hard for people to understand because everything is so heavily regulated. But merchant processing fees are kind of the wild, wild west. Processors can do anything, they can charge anything. So they make up fees, they inflate fees, they hide fees. I mean, just to put this in a financial kind of realm to help people understand, for some of our larger accounts, this is over $10 million a year that those companies are being overbilled before we found them. So, and even for small companies, it can be $5,000 to $10,000. So, it's a lot of money for a lot of companies. It really adds up very quickly. I mean, most people look at their credit card processing statement and they just file it away. They don't even really look at it. And for those that do, like when I speak on this, I'll ask them, I'll be like, hey, how many of you guys actually, validate your fees? And a few hands will go up. And I'll be like, great. Just explain to me the difference between data one, data two, and data three. And they just kind of look at me like, what? I'm like, yeah, I understand you're looking at your discount rate, but you're not really analyzing it, right? And if you are, then you'd be able to tell me all the answers, right, to all the questions that I have. But I assure
Right.
you, even like I tell them, even with me being in this business for over 25 years, I
Right.
mean, I can't do it on my own. I can't sit down with a statement and really, analyze it all. I mean, it takes very expensive software to go through and really strip all that data out and analyze it because there's right at 1,000 interchange categories. I mean, and the average merchant gets about 40 pages of statements, even 14 pages of statements with hundreds, if not thousands for some line items, right? So there's no way for a human to really be able to go through, validate all those fees going back and forth to Visa and MasterCard's website, et cetera. So we've been around since for 16 years. So we started in 2009, and I'm a former executive. All of our C-suite are former executives for the world's largest processor. I literally had kind of a meltdown in a boardroom meeting one day when they were talking about adding even more new hidden fees, and I just said, I got in banking to make my mother proud. I got to get out of banking because I can no longer tell my mother what I do. At that point, back then, it was just a friend there that was working with me, and today is our CFO. But it was really his idea. He said,
Right.
"Hey, Robert, let's go help merchants. You know more about this business than anyone." And I said,
Yeah.
"Good luck with that." I said, "I want nothing to do with it." But he pursued me, month after month for a while, and finally persuaded me to join up with him and start this company. But what was important to me was, as I said, that we really couldn't do it for the money. We'd been making nice high six-figure income jobs. I wanted to
Right.
do it to make sure that we made a difference for companies. I wanted to make sure that we truly did help companies. So we do it for pennies on the dollar. We even have things like, you're not happy, with anything, the first 60 days, let us know. We'll give you back all your money. You can go. And even the clients are with us, they're month to month, because again, we're not wanting to lock anybody into anything. We're wanting to help merchants, right? Which
Right.
is why I wrote the book. So even if somebody says, hey, I want to try to do it on my own, great. Pick
Yeah.
up The Great American Heist, read that.
Yeah.
It gives you a lot of detail in there
Yeah.
about really just how businesses are being ripped off by these processors without knowing.
Fascinating. I mean, I'm probably one of those people who I don't look at my statements, so that's quite profound, and it's got me thinking. But what patterns do you see in when you look at DeFi in particular? Do you see that helping going forward, or what do you see there? in
Yeah,
terms of
well,
the kind of fraud or whatever you call it within.
yeah, I hear what you're saying. And yeah, I wouldn't really, I mean, of course, they won't call it fraud because, again, they don't consider this a regulated industry, right? So is wrong wrong? Yeah, wrong is wrong. Is it legal? Yeah, it's legal. And that's the sad part. I mean, you'd like to think as a business, if you're being overbilled 10 million a year, and let's say this
Yeah,
has been going on for 5 years, that's over $50 million that you could
yeah,
go and file a claim somewhere. Like you've been robbed 50 million. I mean, steal $1 million, right? Or even steal $10,000. It's a felony, right?
yeah,
But if you
yeah,
steal 10,000 through the realm of credit card processing, that's just good business, right? So the things that we see are people like inflating interchange. What that means is, for instance, let's say Visa charges you 2% on a transaction. You have
yeah,
processors that will literally charge 2.95 and try to tell the merchant that that's what Visa's charging them, right? So
yeah,
that's called
yeah,
inflating interchange. Or there's keeping rebates when there's return transactions. That money is supposed to be returned back to the processor. So in other words, let's say you pay out, maybe only $3 to run a transaction.
yeah,
But again, now times this by 1,000, right? Or 100
yeah.
or whatever, right? It adds up. And then when that item gets, returned and the merchant gives the money back to the client, where does that $3 go? It should go back to the process to the merchant, but the
Right.
processor will pocket that, right? And again, add that up,
Mhm.
let's say over a course of a year or even a few months, depending on how many returns a client has or merchant has, that's a lot of money. So that's pretty common. Or we'll see them just making up fees. Where they're probably one of the more common ones we see is in risk fees or interchange settlement fees or interchange clearing fees, Watts fees, auth fees. I mean, the list goes on and on. I could just literally
Right.
just stand here and read a list of 200 items, right?
Mhm.
Because when we, really go out and speak on it or write about it, because I write articles, I write blogs,
Mhm.
I write for Forbes, I write for Entrepreneur. I mean,
Right.
I'll write on these things as we see them. But then what happens is the processor, of course, they're following me. They're my most faithful followers, right? Because
Yeah.
they want to see what I'm talking about. And then
Right.
what happens is they turn around and they just rebrand it, right? So there again, something that's an interchange clearing fee will become an interchange settlement fee, right? So they rebrand it, they rename it, and they just continue to move on.
Right. And what kind of patterns do you see business owners, and I know you're standing for business owners, trying to really help them cut through this. What kind of patterns do you see them missing completely?
Well, really, kind of those same things. I mean, they're kind of just putting them away and putting the statements away and not realizing that there's all these hidden fees and inflated fees. I think
Yeah.
the reality is probably the biggest miss is the reality check that it's not regulated and that it's not necessarily a legitimate bill. I mean, we're rocked to sleep, at least in America. We get a utility bill, we assume that, hey, it is what I owe, right? And you pay it or they deduct it. Better yet, they deduct it out of your bank account. And that's kind of unique too, because it's really about a paradigm shift in the mind. If I were to bill you something and I send you a bill, right, you're going to look at it and you're going to say, Robert, why are you
Yeah.
billing me this? Right? When did I get this? When did this happen? Show me the proof that I owe this money, right? That's the first thing that goes into your mind when you look at a bill, right? Like, did I do this? Did I charge this? Did I buy this, right? And your brain's automatically thinking that way. And then you kind of have this moment where you go, yeah, that's right. I did do that. And yeah, okay. And now I'm going to pay it, right?
Yeah.
But in order to make a mind shift difference, really, is what they do is they automatically take that money out of the merchant's bank account and then they
Right.
give them a receipt, if you will, called a statement a few weeks later. But again, it's all in made up terms. Let me give you an example of a made up term. One of the things that somebody will see on a statement is called EIRF, EIRF, right? Now, EIRF, what does it mean? It stands for Electronic Interchange Reimbursement Fee, right?
Okay.
Which means absolutely nothing to you or anyone, right? It's just an internal code. What does
Yeah.
it really mean? More times than not, it has several meanings, but most of the time it means missing zip code or you didn't put in a zip code, right?
Right.
So why not just tell the merchant you didn't put in the zip code
Yeah.
or you put in the wrong zip code, right? But if they
Right.
talk that way, then the merchant goes, "Oh, okay, I know now you hit me with a higher fee because I didn't put in a zip code, so I'm gonna start putting in the zip codes." Right?
Yeah.
They'll change their behavior, right? So they don't change their behavior, right? Because, well, they don't know why they're even getting dinged. And then to compound to that problem, which really, and I don't want to get too far down that rabbit hole because I get really passionate about it. But why is a merchant even getting hit a higher fee because they didn't put in a zip code?
Yeah.
Well, if you ask Visa and MasterCard or the processors, they're going to say it's a higher risk transaction. Hey, the zip code didn't match. Chances are that card's fraudulent.
Right.
Sounds like a real logical answer, right?
Yeah.
But here's the problem with that. Who eats that fraud? If somebody walks into your business or any business, let's say they use a stolen credit card, they
Yeah.
walk out with a big screen TV, the merchant
Right.
finds out a month later, hey, you're getting hit with a chargeback because that person wasn't the real person who bought that big screen TV. They're disputing it. The merchant will lose that, right? They'll lose that chargeback and they're out the money. Their big screen TV's gone,
Yeah.
right? And they had to pay higher interchange fees to really add insult to injury because they didn't put in a zip code. They charged a higher fee. They get ripped off. Then the processor says, hey, now we're not covering the transaction. And to be clear, even if they had put in the zip code, they
Yeah.
still would have lost that if it's a fraudulent transaction.
Right.
So it's not like that prevents anything from happening, and the merchant's still on the hook. It's just a way that you can ding a merchant for more money and make them think it's a legitimate bill. I mean, what I don't understand is why credit card fees go like this, right? They go up and down based on the card type, based on how it settles, based on how it clears, and just all the various things that happen, right? The fees go all over the place from basically to 1.5 all the way to like around 3.5. Why the
Right.
spread, right?
Right. Right.
But merchants have to eat all that.
Hmm.
But the biggest thing is the big miss is
Yeah.
they think they owe it. They
Right.
think they owe all those fees. And the reality is, more times than not, most merchants end up paying about 40% more than what they should.
Right.
And they
Right.
have no idea.
That's fascinating. And is there any specific industry from your point of view you see probably has better effective oversight mechanism that you would want to see these kind of processors also going towards that kind of oversight?
Well, I'd love to see, yeah, government oversight on this. I mean, the government, both sides, and I say
Yeah.
both sides here in the States, of course, we have, the Republicans and the Democrats.
Yeah.
But this has been going on for decades, right? And neither side has ever picked this fight up. Senator Dick Durbin has said, oh, this is a nasty industry. It's full of, overbillings and that it's non-regulated and something needs to be done, blah, blah, blah. But he's never really put any legislation out there to really justify it. He did something on debit fees years ago, but even on those debit fees years ago, he said that the processor had to lower the fees, or I'm sorry, the issuing banks had to lower the fees to the processor. But he never made that rule pass to where the processor had to actually lower it to the merchant. So to put this in perspective, to make it easier to follow along,
Yeah.
let's just use Chase, and I'm just using Chase as an example. It could be Bank of America, Wells Fargo, it
Right.
doesn't matter.
Mhm.
But Chase, as a issuing bank, has to lower their debit fees on what's called regulated debit cards, right? They have to
Right.
lower those fees down when
Yeah.
they're passing it to, let's say, Chase Payment Tech, their processor.
Right.
So the bank side had to lower it to the same processor side, right? But
Right.
the processor, Chase Payment Tech, is not required to actually lower those fees to the merchant.
Right. Right.
So basically, the bank takes a haircut on profit. The processor side of the house gets a
Right.
bump in profit because they got to buy it for less, right?
Right.
But they don't have to actually pass those savings on.
Mhm.
So it was interesting to me. I wrote an article on that and I said, well, was this a cover up or a big screw up? Right.
Right.
And I have to think it was a little bit of a cover up because we actually called up Senator Dick Durbin's office when we found out that they were working on this project. And we
Right.
said to him, we said, hey, we're one state away. We'll drive over with our attorneys and everything, and we'll help you draft this up and help you understand it. And we're not
Right.
looking for anything. We're not looking to be named on the bill. We're not looking to get credit. We're not looking to be named. We're coming just to give you and your team good advice and a good education on how the industry works so that
Right.
you can draft the proper legislation to take and make this work. And they said, oh, no, no, we know what we're doing. And I'm thinking,
Right.
well, I said, well, that's interesting because I mean, you're a senator. How does that
Yeah.
make you an expert on merchant processing? You know, I mean, I don't even know that I'm an expert on merchant processing. I get called that a lot because I've been
Yeah.
around and I've written on it. And I know a lot, but there's so many moving components to this. I mean, there's over 200 changes almost a year.
Right.
I mean, it is so hard to keep track of. And of course, do you think this is accidental? No, this is deliberate. Um,
Yeah.
like one of our biggest expense is just updating our software to even be able to do the audits, right?
Right.
And so if
Right.
they're making it tough for us to do the audits with our expertise and our software, where does a
Yeah.
merchant fit into this? How do they manage, right? It's going to be almost impossible.
And we are talking big numbers in some cases because I saw
Oh
you
yeah.
you, you know you talked about one of your clients being overcharged to the tune of $260,000. I mean those are big numbers we are talking about. How did this happen and what did you specifically do to uncover this?
Yeah, so well, they sent in their statements. We did the audit, and then we reached out to the processor, and we just said, "Hey, these are all the different ways that you're overbilling them." Now,
Right.
of course, a merchant, even if they had those numbers, they could do the same thing, right? The problem and the danger in that, though, is the processor, again, kind of what we first started off talking about, is they just rename it, rebrand it, and reserve it.
Right.
So you might get them to say, yeah, we're lower the discount rate, but then we're going to, raise this fee, raise that fee. As I try to help people understand it, it's like an analogy of going to a grocery store. It's like going in there and complaining to the grocery store manager, hey, I don't like the price of milk and I don't like the price of ice cream. Now, if
Right.
they're smart, they go, not a problem. Keep shopping here. We're going to reduce the price of milk and ice cream, right? But
Yeah.
cheese goes up, cereal goes up, bananas go up, oranges go up. All of a
Right.
sudden there's a whole new fee, a shopping cart, storage fee. Of
Yeah.
course they'll name them something like they're again, a risk fee or something else to make that all blend in, or an auth fee or a Watts fee or whatever, right? They'll name it something else, but that allows them to just give you what you want, which is you want these three or four things lowered, not a problem, because I have 1,000 things that are in my arsenal that I can relabel and serve back up to you at a higher rate.
Right.
So, with us, there's the advantage is we're able to go back to the processor and say, hey,
Yeah.
we need these items reduced, but then we're able to still keep an eye on those other items, right?
Right.
So that we can ensure with what we're doing that they actually do receive those lower fees. And then of
Mhm.
course we monitor those fees every month because just because you get a processor on, in September to lower your fees, you think they're going to just keep them lowered forever? Do you think somebody that lost $216,000 or
Yeah.
even $5,000 is just going to
Yeah.
let it go and say, well, so what? We lost $5,000, right? No,
Right.
they'll come back, whether it's a month later, 5 months later, a year later, they'll come back, they'll try us on and see if they can sneak past us again. And then we catch them again. We get a refund for our clients, and it's just a vicious cycle. I mean, it really is. We get the fees reduced over and over and over and over, right? And
Right.
because they keep just trying this on, year after year.
Right, right. Well, you obviously developed a fairly sophisticated system that detects these kind of issues. But what audit practices from traditional finance could also prevent this happening in the world of decentralized finance?
Yeah, I mean, so like if a typical merchant really wants to look at their statements, I mean, what they can do is really, and it's going to be time consuming and take a lot of time, but
Yeah,
go through every line item every month, so wherever they see their discount rate, notate that, and then
yeah,
look at it the next month, make sure it doesn't move from that. Then when they see data one, go again and say, hey, the data one is at the same price this month as it was last month. And then look for any new fees. Is there a new fee that came on this month that wasn't there before? Right, and all of a sudden again you see a risk fee, for instance. But the only safety in that is once you already have a clean bill of health, meaning that the statement you have is pure. Because if you don't, right, then what's going to happen is you may be paying $1,000, $2,000 a month for some made up fee.
yeah.
You don't know it's a made up fee. So just because that made up fee didn't change doesn't mean that you're not getting overbilled, right?
Right.
So you still have to start off with at least knowing the statement they're currently looking at is pure, meaning it doesn't have any junk fees, inflated fees, or hidden fees in it.
Right, right. And when you look at the decentralized finance side, there's investors pouring a lot of money into this now. Is there some sort of audits that they should be doing before pouring money into this area? Are we going to end up in the same situation that we have with these traditional payment processors?
Well, yeah, I mean, they definitely want to get an audit done, to there again, because that's the only way you're going to know, right? The audit's free,
Yeah,
so it doesn't cost them anything, but they definitely want to get an audit done. I mean, especially there again, if somebody's even looking at acquiring a company, investing in a company,
yeah,
yeah, they should be asking, when's the last time you had your merchant processing statements audited? Because prime example, let's say you're going to buy, I don't know, some steel manufacturer, right?
right.
And that steel manufacturer is getting overbilled $5 million a year in merchant processing, and that's very, very doable depending on the
Yeah,
size of that merchant, right? Well,
yeah,
if you're looking at acquiring them, right, then when you get that audit done, hey, there's $5 million that we could put to good use day one, right? That we're going to be able to cut from their budget. And it also, though, the counter side of that is it lets you know too, the company you're looking to acquire, are they doing due diligence? I mean, merchant processing is one thing, but there's
yeah.
shipping audits, there's utility audits, there's all kinds of audits. And when a company takes this attitude of, hey, we've got it, we're masters of everything, we're
Yeah.
not just masters at making widgets, but we're master at utilities, we're master at shipping, we're master at merchant processing. And they never use a third party auditing service, right? Or any CPAs even outside to really validate, their financials.
Yeah.
They're at risk, right? I mean, I'm an investor, and I know I wouldn't invest in a company that wasn't regularly doing their audits, right? Because they're again, they're they would be a company that I would walk away from because I'm like, you're not doing your due diligence, you're not doing your job if you're not validating and you're letting money walk away, right? It's not who I would want to invest in and who I would want to run my companies.
Mhm. And you have this mission, your mission is saving companies, saving jobs and families. I mean, that's quite noble. But then we see also now in the new world of decentralized finance, in the DeFi world, we see a lot of exploits. Also, families losing their savings, families losing their money. What do you think needs to be done in this space also so that we don't end up in a similar situation like the situation that we have with the payment processors ripping off companies and small businesses especially and costing jobs?
Right. I mean, that's really what we're after. I mean, I talk about this quite often when I get interviewed as well. that, when I was 9 years old, my mom and dad called me in the room and said, "Hey, dad's, leaving tonight. Who do you want to live with?" And from the age of 9 to 18, when I joined the military, I got bounced around 19 times, part of it with my family, part of it with, non-family members. So you can only imagine that gives you kind of a messed up childhood, right? And so one of the big things when I did agree to start this company, which is why I said, "Hey, we're going to do this not for the money, but really truly to help people,"
Yeah.
was because I know that when companies lose money, right, when they're not profitable, the first thing they do is they cut jobs. That's the very first thing every company does. It's like, "Hey, we need to add, to the bottom line. We need to beef up the bottom line, whether it's to meet stock price expectations, et cetera." Or if it's a family owned company, they're just, "Hey, you just can't carry weight if you can't." I mean, it's like, look, if we don't fire a few people, we're all going down.
Right.
So they let people go. And of course, then when people get let go, there's that stress, right? They got to go home and say to their spouse, "Look, I've lost my job. And now am I going to be able to salvage that job? Am I going to be able to, find another one, And I even know now there's added pressure that I've been reading up where people are just terrified of AI taking their jobs, right?
Right.
So there's a trend going on right now called job hugging. To where people, instead of shopping for jobs all the time, they're just like, "Man, I'm grateful to have the one I've got, right? I don't need to be jumping around."
Yeah.
Um, and this is because they're, again, losing your job in today's society, really it puts you at great risk that you may not find new employment right away.
Right.
And so because of that, oftentimes families do fight and they go, "The stress is too much. Let's go our separate ways," which is really kind of crazy though, because that only puts a bigger financial burden on them, right?
Yeah.
Because it's harder to pay for two homes, two cars, traveling back and forth, trying to shuttle kids and just, makes it just the problem just gets worse, right?
Right. Right.
So in our mind, if we can save a company $50,000 or $20,000 or whatever it is that will keep them from having to lay off somebody, right? Then we just saved a family. I mean, so
Right.
that's really our mission right there, right?
Right.
Is I kind of tell people I'm trying to go back and save the 9-year-old me, because I know what that was like to not be with my family, for many years. I'd see my mom here and there, my dad here and there, but spent the bulk of my childhood not being around my parents. And the good news is they did finally work it out and get back together right before I joined
Right.
the Army. So
Right.
the story does have a happy ending.
Right.
But nevertheless, man, that's brutal. That's brutal
Yeah.
for
That's
any kid to go through. And so,
yeah.
we tell people when they come to work here, you're not
Yeah.
really joining an auditing firm. You're joining a firm that really saves families. And doing the audits is just the tool that God gave us to be able to help these people.
Amazing, amazing, a really amazing personal story behind everything that you do, Robert. When you're talking to merchants, trying to pass your message to either merchants, and I know payment processors probably are following you. They want to know what you're talking about, just in a way to, repackage and come up with something else. But when you're talking to merchants in particular, what kind of challenges do you see trying to get your message across?
Yeah, I mean, I think what we see a lot of times is there again, they think it's, not them. They got a good deal. Their bank loves them. Their processor loves them. But the reality is, because banks and processors are good about saying, "Hey, we're your partner. We're in this together." Well, you're only in it together if you're sharing a P&L,
Mhm.
right? And so if you both rejoice off the same P&L, then you're partners. But if your processor is making more money
Yeah.
when you make mistakes, then they're not there to help you. They will say they're there to help you, but they're not there to help you because every time you make a mistake, they make more money, right?
Right.
So I think it just common sense tells us, if we think about that,
Right.
truly somebody's not going to be motivated to really make my job better. Now, it gets very deceptive because a processor will feel like, oh, they're going to get an audit done, or they're talking about WeAudit or talking to WeAudit. Okay, so we're overbilling them $50,000. Well, let's just overbill them 30,000, right? So they drop their fees 20 grand, and they're like, man, my processor's good to me. They just dropped my fees 20 grand, right?
Right.
So we're good. We're good. They look what a great relationship. Well, wait a
Right.
minute. Let me ask you, how many years did they overbill you 20 grand? Right? So did they give any of that money back? I
Mm.
mean, if you've been with them for 5 years, that's $100,000. Did they give any of that $100,000 back? And what's going to keep them from going right back and just start creeping and chipping it away again? Right? To where all of a sudden the 20 grand that they've reduced,
Yeah.
fast forward 6 months to a year, they're starting to
Yeah.
recover that money yet again. So really just having that trust in the processor, again, to the point you don't validate. So to me, I go back to every merchant and say, hey, validate your merchant fees, validate your shipping fees, your utility fees. All these things should be audited. I mean, the big
Right.
difference between us and those other services is we don't
Yeah.
take a percentage of the savings. Our fee is very small. On average, depending on the size of a merchant, it might make up 2 to 6% if you had to put a percentage to it. These other type of audits will take 50% of the savings. Now, I think that's really crazy high, but hey, if you're getting overbilled $10,000 and somebody's going to charge you 5,000 to stop it, still pay the
Yeah.
$5,000, right? Because you're still saving $5,000,
Yeah.
right? With us, it's way cheaper. But again, I go back to every merchant should be doing everything they can to try to look under every rock that they can to try to save
Yeah.
money. People
Yeah.
also get really, I think, with businesses, they get in the mindset, and because I'm in a CEO peer group, I know how a lot of them think,
Right.
and they think growth, right? I got to grow. I got to go from 1 million in sales to 2 million in sales to 3 million in sales to 4 million in sales to 5 million in sales, whatever, right? They
Right.
think growth, and they're obsessed with growth. And I said, well, here's the problem with growth. You got to do it every day over and over and over and over and over, right?
Right.
So if all of a sudden you have a phenomenal year, you made $10 million in sales, guess what happens come January 1? You
Mhm.
have to figure out how to sell $10 million again, right?
Right.
So you're
Right.
always fighting for that profit. But yet they don't focus on the savings, which automatically regenerates itself, if you will. Meaning, if
Right.
you're a $10 million company
Yeah.
and you're saving $50,000 this year, if your sales just stay on par, you're saving 50,000 again next year, and again
Wow.
next year, and again
Yeah.
next year, right?
Yeah.
So savings money has a greater compound to it than new sales does. But
Absolutely.
yet, most business guys or girls will say, no, it's all about new growth. And even, let's be honest, there's companies that worry so much about growth that they don't even make profits.
Right. Right.
And it's like, yeah, you're a $50 million company that just went out of business, right?
Exactly.
Because you weren't really paying attention to the profits. Savings and profits, I'm not saying they have to come first, but you cannot ignore them. They are part of the
Right.
trifecta, right? So
Yeah.
you got to have sales. You also
Mhm.
have to have profits. And in order to have good, healthy profits, you have to make sure you're watching every dime that's going out the back door, not just what's
Right.
coming in new sales in the front door.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I mean it's really great work you're doing around this space, especially in the messaging. We need voices like you to amplify, to show actually what's going on. Any last message that you want to give maybe our audience, your potential clients, anything that you want to say, or any message from the book that you want people to take away?
Yeah, I mean, they can find the book on, Amazon, Barnes and Noble, etc. There is a new version of it coming out with 4 new bonus chapters, which I'm super excited about. That hopefully
Yeah.
will be online and available by the end of the year. So that will be a new special edition. But the other thing is, I would say, and and of course the publisher gets most of the profit from the book. So I'm not going to be all about buy the book anyway. I think I get like $4 a copy, whoopee doo. So, but I would go out and take advantage of the free audit because
Right.
again, there's nothing better than free. Um,
Yeah.
and it's not an opinion audit. We're going to show you exactly line item by line item the math of where you're being overbilled or where you're not being overbilled. So,
Right.
you can either go to your boss and say, hey, great news. I just figured out a way to save our company $50,000. Or you
Right.
can go to your boss and say, great news. We're not getting overbilled. I made sure that we're not losing one penny on merchant processing, right?
Right.
Your boss is going to want to hear both of those, right?
Yeah.
They're going to want to know, hey, am I losing? Because they're always assuming they're losing, right? They're always thinking, man, am I getting overbilled, right? So if you go get that validated, you're a hero. If you find
Absolutely.
$50,000, you're a hero. So going out and getting an audit done gives you hero status regardless of the outcome of the audit.
Right. And as you say, there's nothing to lose. You're giving the free audit, and if it comes and says you're not being overcharged, you're already a winner. I mean, that's
Right.
amazing. That's
Yeah.
fantastic.
People will sit and say, well, what's in it for you? What's the con? What's the game? Hey, it's no different than the big box grocers, right? You go in there, they give you a free cookie, right? They give you a free, whatever when you go in, right? And
Yeah.
so the question is, why are they doing that? Because they're hoping when you taste it, you're going to go, wait a minute, where's the bag? I actually like these things a lot. I want to go buy a whole bag, right?
Right.
So our free audit is our what we call the free cookie, right? So bottom line is we'll show you what's going on. We'll show
Yeah.
you how easy we are to work with. And
Right.
we're hoping that you might say, hey, we like you guys so much, we want to hire you, right?
Yeah.
But there's no strings attached. There's no credit card needed. There's no anything that anyone has to do. We don't force them to give us their personal information as far as like a credit card, numbers and stuff like that. No, you're just uploading your merchant processing statements. And
Right.
even that, if you want, the bigger companies will sign a non-disclosure agreement
Yeah.
if you feel like that's important to you.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then we just give them back all the line item details. We send them the report and say, here you go.
Right.
And if they want to hire us, great. If they don't, then okay, we'll move on to the next one.
And I know you target your customer base is quite wide, because I mean payment processing is pretty much used by anyone. But is there
Oh yeah.
any specific industry, any specific kind of customers you target?
Yeah, I would say, yeah, great question. So ours, what we kind of, we hire marketing companies all the time and they ask the same question, right? What's our bread and butter? What's our sweet spot? So I would say that the majority of our clients, right, are really in that 10 million to 100 million in business,
Right.
and primarily in the B2B space, right? Now, that being said, if you go out and look at our website, you'll see we have tons of large publicly traded accounts, right? We have retailers, we have limo companies, we have, I mean, everybody in every type of business you can imagine. Our smallest account's a dry cleaner. So we don't turn anyone away.
Yeah.
Um, when we're chasing business, right? Where do we go for trade shows? We're going to go in that 10 to million. And the only reason we do that is because people under 10 million have a tendency to think I can do this on my own, right?
Right.
And it's hard. I get it. They're strapped for cash, so they really don't want to pay for anything. They want to try to manage it themselves. And we find that to be quite common. So that's why we don't really pursue them. But for those that want help, we're not going to turn them away and they're still going to save good money, right? And then really when you get over 100 million, you start dying by death of committee, right? So those large publicly traded accounts, you'll see some of those
Yeah.
took years before they pulled the
Yeah.
trigger. The audit
Mhm.
was done. They knew they were losing millions, but
Right.
it took years before it moved up in the kind of that, I guess, the phase of where they said, okay, you're up next, because, and I get it. They're working on this project. They're working on this project. Maybe they're doing acquisitions. They're moving into another country. They're doing so many things, right?
Right.
So you just kind of got to get in the queue and just wait your turn, and they go, okay, you're up, right? Now we're ready to get to you. So those are the reasons why we don't necessarily pursue on either end, but
Right.
every merchant of every size
Right.
needs us.
It's
I
possible.
mean, Kevin Harrington from Shark Tank said we're the only company that every company needs. So that's coming from a shark.
Yeah.
So I think he's seen a lot, in that. So
Yeah.
I think he would know, and that's what we do.
That's great, great validation there. Thank you very much, Robert. That was very, very insightful, and it's really great the work that you guys are doing.